Okay, so today I'm going to be working questions 39 through 42. Yesterday we learned that the three angles of a triangle always add up to 180. That's one thing we learned yesterday. So looking at number 39 and 40, it says find the measure of each angle indicated. So I see there's a question mark there. So I need to find out how big is that angle. But I'm giving you two triangles as a hint. As a hint, you don't start on the triangle that I gave you, where the question mark is. You don't start at that triangle. You start at the other triangle, right? In order for us to be able to solve for one angle, so if I'm missing one angle, right, I'm gonna highlight it here in red. In order for us to find one angle of a triangle, I need to know the other two. So I need to know two angles of one triangle to be able to find the third one. Because I know all three add up to 180, but I need to know at least two of them. Well, I see on the bottom triangle, I know two angles, 50 and 30. Well, how much is 50 plus 30? In my case, I'm gonna call it 80. Notice I added the two angles that I have, 50 and 30. Let me subtract this from 180. 180 minus 80 is 100. So that means the third angle is 100. So notice what I did. In order for me to find one angle of a triangle, I need to know the other two. The way I solve it is I add the other two and then the result subtracted from 180. So I got 100. Well, I'm going to say this other corner here is 100. Remember the vertical angle theorem? When there's an X form, opposite angles are equal. Okay, so that's how I got that 100. Okay, now I can solve for the angle that I was looking for. Because on that triangle, I already know two angles. One of them is 60, the other one is 100. So let me add the two that I have. 100 plus 60 is 160. Let me subtract this from 180, and that gives me 20. So this angle right here happens to be 20. Okay, not bad. How about number 40? I see I have 88 and 37. I'm looking at this triangle here. Okay, so I'm looking at this triangle, and I said earlier, when you know two angles, add them up. So I'm gonna grab my calculator, 88 plus 37. It says 125. So I added the two angles that I have. So in this case, 125. Let me subtract this from 180. 180 minus 125 is 55. So this corner here is 55 degrees. So I'm gonna say this corner here is 35. Some of you are like, wait a minute, where does that 35 come from? Well, you see how on the back it says those two corners combined is 90? You see the box right there? Those two angles combined is 90. One of them is 55, the other one is 35. Right? 90 minus 55 is 35. That's how I figure that angle was 35. Okay, now let me change this to blue so you guys see which triangle I'm focused on. I'm focused on this triangle, the blue one. I know two angles, 65 and 35. So let me add those two numbers. 65 plus 35 is 100. Let me subtract this from 180. So that tells me this angle here is 80. Another rule you guys will run into is the three angles of a triangle add up to 180. Because I can give you, let's say I say this angle right here is 60, this angle is 70, and then you have to solve for the third one. Well, we will figure the third one is 50. That's something you guys will run into in your homework. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at number 41. In the diagram below of triangle ABC, so there's a triangle ABC. Let me see it. I'm going to highlight it in red. I'm just going to connect A with B with C. And because it's a triangle, I'm going to close it back up. Okay, so that's a triangle. The segment CBF is drawn. Yeah, I see the segment CBF. It's right there. I see it. AB bisects the angle FBD. Okay, let's take a look at this thing. The angle FBD. So if you connect F with B with D, you get this angle. But it says the segment AB bisects the angle. So that means it cuts it in half. So if this half is X, I'm going to say this half is X. Notice how I just call it a letter, right? Remember in mathematics, when we don't know the value of something, we replace it with a letter. I just use the same letter because it's the same number, right? Because AB bisects the angle. Bisects means cuts it in half. And then the segment BD, oh, I'm reading this, very interesting. BD is perpendicular to AC. Huh. The segment BD and AC are perpendicular. Perpendicular means they make a 90-degree angle. So I see the segment BD and I see the segment AC. They're perpendicular, so that means they make a 90-degree angle, as a matter of fact, on both sides. If the measurement of angle C is 34, so I have that this corner right here is 34, what is the measurement of angle A? So I'm solving for this angle. I'm not going to say I'm solving for X because I already used the letter X. Okay, so I'm not going to call it X. I'm going to call it Y. As a hint, I'm going to solve for X first, and then once I have X, I'm going to solve for Y. Remember, I use letters when I don't know the values. Okay, now let me focus on this triangle. I'm going to say that I have two angles, right? 90 and 34. So the way I'm going to find the third angle of this triangle, first I'm going to add the two angles that I have, 90 plus 34. 90 plus 34 is 124. I subtract this from 180, so I get 56. So good, I know this angle right here is 56. But I see a connection between 56 and the two x's. As a matter of fact, let me just write it out here. X plus 56. Oh, I see those two x's and 56 combined make half of a circle. So that means they equal to 180. Here I see 1x plus 1x. It is not x squared. 1x plus 1x is 2x. So I have 2x plus 56 equals 180. Okay, let me move the 56 over. So 2x is equal to 180 minus 56 is 124. Now divide both sides by 2. So x happens to be 62. Good. So I know each of these angles 62. That's not the angle that I'm solving for. I'm solving for the angle that I call y. Remember, I started using letters at the beginning when I didn't know the angles. So right now, I want you guys to focus on this triangle. One angle is 62, another angle is 90. We can solve for the third angle. Right? Every time you have two angles on a triangle, you can solve for the third one. That way we're going to do this. I'm going to add the two that I have. 62 plus 90. That is 152. And let me subtract this from 180. 180 minus 152 happens to be 28. So this angle is 28. Man, that was pretty cool. This one took us a few steps to get here. That's pretty cool. Let's solve something very similar to this. In the diagram below of triangle ABC, CBF is drawn. The segment AB bisects the angle ABD. So we saw the angle FBD is right here, but the segment AB bisects it. So this half is equal to this half. I don't know how big is each half, so I'm going to call it X. Same letter because it's the same number. Don't know how big it is. And then the segment BD is perpendicular to the segment AC. Okay, so the segment BD and AC then create a 90-degree angle on each side. Good. If the measurement of angle C is 46, what is the measurement of angle A? I don't know how big is the angle A. I cannot call it X because I already used that letter here in my graph. So I'm gonna call it Y. When I don't know a value, I replace it with the letter. Okay. So I see on this small triangle, let me highlight it in red so we can see which triangle I'm looking at. So I see one angle is 46 and I have a second angle that is 90. So I know two angles. I can find the third angle. All right, the way I do this, I add the two angles that I have. 90 plus 46, that's 136. I subtract it from 180, that gives me 44. So this angle right here, it is 44. I'm going to be able to solve for X because I see that 1X plus another X plus 44 makes half of a circle. So I'm going to go 1X plus another X plus 44 is equal to 180 because it makes half of a circle. Let me separate to the equal sign. 1X plus 1X gives me 2X. So 2X plus 44 is equal to 180. I want the 2X by itself. I want the X by itself, but first let me get the 2X. So this plus 44, let me move it over as a minus 44. So 2X is equal to 136. Right, 180 minus 44 is 136. Divide both sides by 2. So X happens to be 68. All right, so this is 68 and this is 68. Now I'm going to highlight this triangle. I see one angle is 68. I see another angle is 90. I can find the third angle. Remember, when I know two angles of a triangle, I add the two that I have. So 68 plus 90, that's 158. I subtract this from 180. That gives me 22. So this third angle is 22. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. So there, that's what we did today.